last time. We are now on part 2. Before we go any further, I want you to take a look at the notes that you printed out. Again, if you haven't gotten them yet, the link is in the description of this video. I want you to look at part 2 on page 2 under introduction. Let's just review what we said last time by reading this sample introduction. Let's just take it apart structurally. So the little quoted part right here is what we're going to look at. Shakespeare's young king in Henry V. All right, so we've got the author, Shakespeare, and the title of the work, Henry V. Shakespeare's young king in Henry V is portrayed as a true picture of noble character, the mirror of all Christian kings, a quote from the play, and it's got the reference where I found it. Shakespeare does not attempt to delineate the king's traits in a void, however, for in a vacuum, piety appears as self-righteousness, confidence as vanity, and wit as absurdity. Therefore, Shakespeare fashions a complex set of foils to surround his hero, that the inferior nature of these characters might cast reflected light on the details of Henry's personality, which otherwise would remain unseen. Okay, so now we've taken the topic and we've narrowed it down. We know what we're going to talk about, right? It's Henry V's character and how Shakespeare is elucidating that character during the play. Here's the thesis statement. The Dauphin, that's the Prince of France. The Dauphin is the primary foil to the new English king, as his every action, speech, and attitude provoke insights into the transformation of the British monarch from the formerly disreputable Prince Hal to Shakespeare's Henry V. Okay, so that's the thesis statement of this introduction, is that Dauphin, every time he interacts with Henry V, it's to cast, as a foil, to cast light on the fact that Henry V has changed. He was a rowdy, kind of playboy-esque, good-for-nothing rascal of a prince, Hal. He's now the monarch, and he is now Henry V, the king. He's changed, he's royal, and this is how Shakespeare's going to do it. You see how that introduction worked? Went from down to the thesis statement, from out, here's the topic of the play and who wrote it, down to the thesis statement. So that's all set for us. Okay, so this time we're going to talk about the body paragraphs and how you support that thesis, right? The body of the essay, so you tell them what you're going to tell them, and now you're going to tell them. That's the body of the essay. That's what we're going to talk about this time. That body of the essay is going to provide support and proof. It's your argument that your thesis is correct. Remember, your thesis statement is an arguable statement. This is your evidence. What kind of evidence do you bring to a trial? You bring the words, the pictures, the eyewitness testimony, right? Well, as a prosecuting attorney, writer, writing this literary analysis paper, if you think about it that way, you need to bring your evidence now. So the evidence that you support your thesis with isn't simply what you think, it's what you find in what you have read, in the work itself. You look in the work itself. You can use direct quotes, as you see I did up there in that introduction that we just read. You can use direct quotes. You can use summaries of actions. All right, so let's think about this. We just read that introduction. Let's look down a little further under this paragraph. An important, you see the yellow highlighted part? That yellow highlighted part is the topic sentence for that paragraph. It says this paragraph is going to talk all about this stuff, okay? An important area of contrast between the opposing rulers is revealed through Shakespeare's portrayal of their relationship to and reverence for God. All right, so you notice I highlighted that in yellow on the paper because that is the claim. Right? That's the claim that you're making. It's the topic sentence for the paragraph. That's your claim. Okay? Then you're going to basically use two things. You're going to use quotes from the work and your own reasoning. So you're going to quote something from the work, and then you're going to explain what that means. Okay? And then maybe you're going to offer another little word of explanation, and you're going to tie that into a summary of action. And this is how you build your paragraph, okay? So when we talk about making an outline, I know you all hate that word. If you just you had number 1, introduction. And remember you had some blank lines, right? And then you had your thesis statement. And you hopefully have filled those in with some backstory or some history, something that's important to lead people into that thesis statement. All right, now I want you to put a Roman numeral 2. This is the body of your report. And you're going to put A, B, C, D. Maybe 4 paragraphs you're going to have. And next to each of those 4 paragraphs, you need to decide What is it I can prove about my thesis statement? If we go back to the example I was using last time, the Huckleberry Finn and his Buildings Roman journey down the Mississippi, each of those 4 topics could involve a stop along the way or an event that happened that Huck learned something. You know, the stop, for instance, the sequence where Huck convinced Jim he was dreaming, and then Jim told him that he had treated him like a fool. Taught Huck something, didn't it? Maybe you could put a topic sentence there. And you run through that episode a little bit, quoting the most important parts to prove that Huck has changed. Then at the end, what can you do? You have, so this is the claim, right? The evidence, we're going to make that the gray parts here, right? The evidence, the red part is going to be the reasoning that you use to link them together. So every paragraph has a claim. Every paragraph is going to have evidence, just like you're building a case. I can't get those separated, so we'll do it like that. There's reasoning involved because you can't just throw quotes at people. You have to explain to them what the quotes mean. We see when Huck says this, that he understands he treated Jim wrong and he needs to recognize that he is a human being and treat him as such. In fact, Jim has treated Huck more like a father than Huck's own pa ever did, hasn't he? He's cooked for him, he's cared for him, he's kept him, tried to keep him safe, he calls him honey. There's a love that Jim has for Huck, right? And Huck feels that too, but he needs to learn to return that. He's exploring that for the first time now, okay? So that would be a good way. And then you're going to bring in, if you ever were an IEW, you might call it a clincher sentence. It's kind of a summary of the paragraph to say, see, I did prove this. When Huck convinces Jim all that happened that night was a dream, and Jim's come up and helps Huck to realize he needs to treat Jim better. And then you lay it all out and you say, as a result, Huck learns to view Jim as a fellow human being and not merely as a possession as he had before. So you build that paragraph very tightly, okay? I want to encourage you something here. A lot of people it's hard for them to get going. If you give yourself permission to just make an outline and make it very free, you don't have to have just a few words, you don't have to just write. Pencil and paper, write. Make sure you use your eraser whenever you need it. Think about what your great quotes are going to be from each scene. So my advice for your body paragraphs, right? You're going to have A, B, C, D. Figure out your 4 or your 3. If you're going to really go into depth, 3 is probably enough for a 3-page paper. Events. Think about what your claim is for each of those events. When Huck stays with the Grangers and Shepherdsons, he learns that violence and killing is not just a game, but a very serious event. All right? So maybe that's your topic sentence for that setting, for that episode in the body. You're going to go through that section. You're going to look back at that chapter and you're going to dig out the best quotes. Maybe show a contrast. Maybe show how Huck got there and maybe he thought it was kind of cool and wow, they take this so seriously they don't even talk to each other. Something like that. Then you're going to dig out some of those quotes that happen when people start getting killed. And then you're going to talk about that quote. There's a quote at the end where Huck says, I can't even think about that, or I still can't sleep, or there's some quotes that talk about how deeply it affected him. And he can't even dwell on it because it still is so painful to think about. Huck's attitude toward being in a gang and robbing and ransoming and kidnapping and murdering has changed because he sees it's not a game. It's a real life-ending thing, right? So that's how you build that paragraph. A claim, your evidence interwoven with reasoning. Your evidence are your text from your reading. It's the summaries of things that happened. You can collapse a narrative. When Huck sees Buck's family start to get killed, the closer and closer it gets to his friend, the more and more seriously he starts to take it. Okay, and then maybe put a quote in there, and then give some reasoning. Huck's ideas are beginning to change as he lives the reality along with Buck's family. Okay, Let's take a look in the notes at this paragraph I have here, and I've highlighted the claim you see in yellow, right? And then I have the evidence in green. Let's look and see what kind of evidence is used. First of all, the claim was that the way that Henry V and the Dauphin relate to God shows their difference, okay? So the first quote, Henry makes constant references to his dependence on God, the will of God, the hand of God, God before we will come on, and God be with you all. The Dauphin makes references only to his own prowess. I will trot tomorrow a mile, and my way shall be paved with English faces. So it's a sentence drawing a contrast between the reliance on God versus the reliance on self. Okay, they're two disparate attitudes. Now, here's a piece of reasoning stuck in there in blue. Henry's religion is not a mere public exhibit. The private moments which Shakespeare paints reveal a man deeply faithful to his God. The Dauphin's relationship to God seems a mere passing acquaintance by comparison. And now here's more evidence of that, right? In green. The night before the Battle of Agincourt, Henry prays, begging pardon for his father's sin, asking for brave hearts for his soldiers. The night before Agincourt, the Dauphin jokes coarsely and pointedly with the constable. Henry addresses God in prayer regularly throughout the day. The Dauphin uses God's name only in curses. Okay, you see what I'm doing, right? I'm just interweaving textual evidence with reasoning. You're going to do the same thing in your literary analysis. Interweave summaries, find quotes, and interweave them with reasoning to show what that's proving. Okay, you have to show people what it's proving to them. I hope this is helpful. A strong body paragraph. Claim, support that claim using evidence, explain how the evidence supports the claim by using reasoning, and then that final sentence should refer back to your topic. In my paragraph here, it says, once again highlights the divine right of Henry V and Henry's faithful response to that divine blessing. Okay, so it ties back in to that original claim. It's in IEW they call it a clincher sentence, right? Topic and clincher. So we've got claim and that tie back to it. Note that every single sentence in the paragraph is going to support the topic either by giving an idea, developing an idea, giving an example through text, or either a direct quotation or a summary or a paraphrase, or by developing and expanding the topic. There are no rabbit trails of thought. You just can't. You can't afford rabbit trails of thought. You have to lead your reader through this just as if you were a prosecuting attorney leading a jury through a case. That's how tightly these should be written, okay? No rabbit trails of thought. And then remember, of course, your topic sentence directly supports your thesis, right? Our big claim in the introduction was that the Dauphin is a foil to Henry. This little claim says one of the ways that he shows that foil is through their relationship with God, okay? Then they went on and there were other paragraphs to support that. All right, that's our second time. That's a wrap for this time. Get to work this time now on your body paragraphs. What are your scenarios going to be that are going to support that big claim, your thesis and your introduction? Start looking through the chapter for good quotes. Think about what you could summarize. Take some notes on what's your supporting evidence? That's what you need to know. What's your supporting evidence and how are you going to explain it for each paragraph? All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.